Hello and welcome back to the Demon Den podcast. Today we are going to be talking about a really insane case. This is the case of Shanda Sharer, and this case has stuck with me for such a long time. I actually started researching this when I first started my podcast, like literally 4 years ago. And I just got back to my podcast and I got back to my old notes, and I just it's just to this day it still makes me sick. So we are going to talk about it. Before I talk about this case though, I just want to say this case is very graphic. This is one of those cases that I did a super deep dive on. I read the book Cruel Sacrifice by Aphrodite Jones, and it went into detail, and I was I was reading it, and it was so sickening, and I know that some people kind of steer away from talking or saying the graphic details, but my personal opinion on that is I just feel like the victims didn't have the luxury and the choice to not suffer through these gruesome details. Like, we're reading it, we're hearing it, they had to live it. So if they had to live it and they, had to experience that, we can listen to it, because we're not experiencing it. And this is something that human beings had to go through. And I'm not going to glamorize it and brush over it. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about what this poor girl had to go through. So, so this is very heavy on the details regarding, the night of her murder. Just so you could really see the gravity of this crime. It's honestly sickening. So I just wanted to give that warning. If you are not interested in a very detailed case like this, I totally understand. This is not the episode for you. You can catch us next episode or hang out and, listen to some of my old episodes. But so I just wanted to give that little disclaimer. But let's get right into it, because this is a long one, honestly. So, Shanda Sharer was born June 6, 1979 in Kentucky. Her parents got divorced and both remarried, and she was very close with both of her parents and her step-parents. She would spend the week with her mom and then the weekend with her dad. She loved fashion. She was super bubbly, friendly, popular, social. She was smart, and she was a really good kid. Like, she never got in trouble. She was into sports, and she was just a regular, happy, social kid. Her and her family would move to Indiana in 1991, where she would attend Hazelwood Junior High. This was her first time in a public school. At the time, she was only 12 years old, but she looked older than 12, and she was very mature, looking and acting for her age. Here, in this new school, this new public school setting that she wasn't used to, she kind of let her grades start to slip, and she stopped playing sports so much. She was more interested in being social and just teenage stuff. A lot of teens go through that phase in high school where they don't care about schoolwork anymore. They just want to have fun, go out, talk to boys, and all that. So that's where Shanda was right now. When she first arrived, she didn't have too many friends. Obviously, she was the new girl, but one person who noticed her quickly was 15-year-old Amanda Heverin. Amanda Heverin was popular and well-known. She was a jock. She was known to be very tough and rough around the edges, which Shanda was not like at all. And she was also one of the only openly gay people in school. Shanda and her started becoming very close at first, and at first it was just a friendship, but then it started to quickly become something more. Amanda would write Shanda notes asking her if she ever been with a girl before, if she liked her, and things like that. Just like they had a crush on each other. Amanda had a crush on her, and Shanda was into it. Shanda was only 12, though, so she didn't have any relationship experience in general, but she did start to experiment with Amanda, and she began to really like her. Unfortunately, though, Amanda was already in a very open, toxic relationship with another girl in school, 16-year-old Melinda Loveless. So we need to take a break and talk about Melinda Loveless for a little bit, just to get a clear picture of this girl. She is one of those kids who were set up for failure from the time that she was young. All of, negative things start at home, and Melinda Loveless had a very, very, very rough home life. I don't want to say that she was set up for failure, but the odds were stacked against her. She had a very rough life, and that's not to excuse any of the disgusting things that she has done and that we'll hear that she did. But when you are looking at cases like this and evil people, you have to look at where did it start? Where did the behaviors where did they learn the behaviors? And Melinda definitely learned her behaviors. So, Melinda Loveless. Her parents' names were Marjorie and Larry Loveless. Her home life was not good at all growing up. Her father was a pervert and a sex-obsessed alcoholic. He sexually assaulted both her sisters, Melissa and Michelle, since they were infants. That is, like, this... pedophiles are disgusting. Infants? How? That's like, I don't even know. There has to be a more derogatory word for it, because in infants, it's just, that is so sick. Melinda said he never abused her, but if we're going by a pattern, I kind of feel like he might have. Melinda was younger than her other sisters at the time, so she was very submissive to her father. She saw everything that he was doing and how bad he was, but since she was so young, it didn't probably register to her as much as her older sisters. So again, Melinda did say that her father didn't abuse her, but I don't know if Melinda is the most reliable source. But that's really, there's no proof on that or not. It's just an opinion. But he also sexually abused Marjorie, the mom. He would force her to have sex with not only him, but with other men in front of him, and forced her to participate in swinging. She was not happy, so she would have affairs with other men, I guess as like revenge. But she ended up putting these men before the kids. Like, that's all she cared about, were the men, going out on dates, going to sleep with men of her choosing. Like, she didn't really care about caring for the children, and obviously neither did the dad. So they were pretty much on their own. I mean, Melinda's older sisters kind of took the role as parents for Melinda. So the kids were not priority in the household. Obviously, they were very neglected. You know, like I said, her sisters took that role, but there's only so much kids could do to raise other kids. Especially when they're all raised in the same, like, fucked up household. They don't know any better. Then, all of a sudden, things took a turn in the Loveless household, and her father joined a Baptist church and became super religious for a short period of time. So now he would use that to abuse the kids. So he would take away anything they had, like stuffed animals, toys, posters, or anything that he deemed demonic. When Melinda was 5 years old, her father decided she needed an exorcism. How does a 5-year-old need an exorcism? So this man is going from one extreme to another. Like, now not only was he a perverted alcoholic freak that he was still kind of doing low-key, like he never really gave that up, but now he's like this crazy religious psycho who wants to perform an exorcism on his 5-year-old. But this is what the exorcism was. Hear this. Okay. The exorcism was him leaving her in a motel room alone with a 50-year-old man who claimed he could perform an exorcism. He left her in a hotel room with the old man for 5 hours, his 5-year-old daughter. She doesn't remember what happened, but like, I don't know. I don't want to make any calls about what happened, but what do we think happened in that situation? Honestly. Anyway, eventually her father would get bored of this newfound religion, and he just went back to full-time doing all the other shit he was doing, but worse. Not only is he abusing the women in the household, but he's also peeping on the neighborhood girls. He's sleeping in bed with his daughters. He's just like a very overly freaked out pig. He's like one of those men who are just too sexual. Like, everything is sex related, and he's sick. So a lot of very taboo things happened to Melinda in her childhood, and she grew up in an extremely odd and toxic environment, which definitely plays a factor in how fucked up we will see that she is, like I said earlier. When Melinda was 15, she was still wetting the bed and playing with children's toys, which is all clear signs of trauma and abuse. She had a lot of issues that needed to sort out that just weren't, and they ended up being really detrimental to her. If she would have been able to get some help maybe, or talk to somebody, maybe this could have ended differently, but she wasn't able to, so it really fucked with her head. So now that we learned a little bit about Melinda, let's get back to the story. When Amanda and Melinda met, they were infatuated with each other. They were each other's first experience with a lesbian relationship, and remember, this is the 90s, so being gay wasn't as accepted as it is now, so this was a big deal for them. But their relationship was very toxic. Melinda would get violent, and she would take out her anger a lot on Amanda. And imagine how much anger she was probably holding in. So imagine how much she was probably letting out on Amanda. She was also extremely possessive, and she always needed to get her way. Amanda said there was a lot of sexual things Melinda would force her to do that she wasn't always comfortable with. But Melinda was very sexually charged, and I wonder why. That type of behavior was ingrained in her head from a young age. So, of course, she's going to have those traits in her. So Melinda was just a lot. She always needed to be in control, so you can imagine how much she did not like when she began losing control and losing Amanda to Shanda. Melinda began bullying Shanda immediately. She would make fun of her appearance. She would try to embarrass her in front of people. She hated Shanda. Like, she just hardcore went after Shanda. However, this did not stop Amanda and Shanda at first. They still remained really close. And Amanda started to like Shanda even more, and Shanda started to like Amanda even more. You know, Amanda was used to Melinda's crazy ass, and Shanda was the complete opposite. So, of course, she was, like, falling in love with her. But Amanda also didn't want to leave Melinda alone. So she was playing both of them pretty much, which never turns out good, especially when you have a crazy toxic bitch on your hands. And, you know, we all have our fair share of toxic moments in life. Obviously not the level Melinda. So we all, like, know how that goes. But it's never easy when you're playing in a toxic relationship. But at the same time, Melinda didn't make it easy for Amanda to leave, even if she wanted to. So Amanda could have also been a little bit scared of Melinda, because Melinda wasn't giving up Amanda easily. She was attached. Melinda had very bad daddy issues, and when you have that, it can make you have very unhealthy attachments to others and seeking love that you didn't get from your parents. So clearly that is where Melinda is right now when it comes to Amanda. So she's not letting go of her anytime soon. She has attached herself to her. So it was not easy for anyone involved, and Shanda didn't know what she was getting herself into. She's a kid. She's literally fucking 12 years old. Of course she doesn't know what she's getting herself into. I mean, Melinda and Amanda aren't so much older, but they are teens at this point. Anyway, Melinda ended up trying to become friends with Shanda. And I say friends like that because she wasn't really trying to be friends with her. She was just hoping that this friendship would kind of stop her from pursuing Amanda, maybe like guilt her into not messing with Amanda anymore because they were friends. She tried to tell Shanda that her and Amanda were together and she shouldn't be talking to her, and to basically leave her alone. And unless they were all friends, she needs to kind of like get the fuck up out of there. Like, you're not, unless you want to be my friend too, stop talking to Amanda because she's mine and we are together and you are not. A and B conversation, see your way out. But that didn't stop Amanda and Shanda, and this angered Melinda even more. She would threaten Amanda to stop talking to her. She would say she was leaving her. But again, it wasn't stopping them. So her threats to Amanda, telling her, I'm going to leave you if you don't stop, they weren't working. Amanda was probably like, okay, leave me. Please make it easy for me. But anytime Melinda saw Amanda and Shanda getting close in any way, she would be extremely triggered. And Shanda really liked Amanda, and she was getting infatuated with her now. At this point, it's a big love triangle, but Amanda and Shanda are getting a lot closer and pushing Melinda out more and more. The final straw was when a school dance was happening, and Amanda and Shanda went together. Melinda showed up and chased Shanda around the dance, and then from then on, it was a nightmare with these two. Shanda was permanently on Melinda's shit list. She was constantly saying she wanted to beat her up, kill her, she wanted her dead. All things a teenage girl would say out of anger and being dramatic, but we would find out that she actually meant it. She was trying to get people to beat up Amanda too, and it was just becoming too much, and this made Amanda and Shanda grow even closer. Like, they really bonded over how crazy Melinda was being. They went on an official date one night, and they kind of fully started focusing on each other. Like, Amanda completely ignored Melinda, like, no more talking at all, completely, like, just bye, I'm putting all my time into Shanda. And you guessed it, Melinda was livid. At this point, Shanda's parents started to catch on to what was going on after finding some inappropriate notes in Shanda's room. They did not like this relationship with Amanda at all. They thought she was way too young. They also didn't like what was going on with Melinda because they saw notes regarding that situation too, like how, you know, Melinda was going to beat her up and all this crazy stuff. And on top of that, Shanda's grades were going down and she was changing in so many ways that they did not like, so they sent her back to private school. So I just want to make it clear. At this point, she is no longer in school with neither Amanda or Melinda, and she did not see them on a daily basis anymore. Once Shanda was back in private school, she went back to her old self right away. She was doing so much better at school. She had good friends again. She was being social again with the right crowd. And she was doing so much better and just so much happier there. She still was secretly seeing Amanda, but they were keeping it on the down low because Melinda still had it out for Shanda. It was still on site, and her friends were ready to beat her up if they saw her. Amanda even told Shanda, "You are in danger if they find out." So they were keeping it very low-key. So at this point, Melinda is still mad. She wants to get rid of Shanda for good. Going back and forth, beating her up isn't enough anymore. She needs to get rid of Shanda permanently. So this is where she recruits her friend, 17-year-old Lori Tackett, who then recruits her friends, 15-year-old Hope Rippey and 15-year-old Toni Lawrence. And these are the 4 girls who would end up killing Shanda Sharer. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about these girls. Let's start with Lori Tackett because she's the most to talk about. I'm going to say right now, Lori Tackett is a fucking monster. Like, she truly is just as evil as Amanda, and you will see why. Lori and Melinda met outside of school. They were both part of the punk crowd, so they would see each other at, like, concerts they would go to, skate parks and stuff, and they eventually formed a friendship. Lori was very rebellious. She was very into the occult and dark things. She was bisexual as well, which, again, wasn't super accepted at this time, so she kind of felt like an outcast. And she grew up in a very religious household, but not like a normal one. She grew up in like a crazy religious household where everything was a sin, like a toxic religious household. She was constantly being told she was going to hell for everything that she would do, and she became super depressed, but her family didn't believe in medicine, so she couldn't see a doctor, therapist, nothing. So again, she had nothing set up for her. Like, everything was stacked against her as well. Like, if she got the help she needed, maybe it wouldn't have ended up like this with her, but she didn't. Lori wasn't allowed to wear pants or jeans, and one day her mom caught her putting on a pair and tried to strangle her. So these kids literally had the worst parents. I have to say, people wonder why kids turn out evil. Like, that is why. Lori even said she wanted to be evil just to spite her mom, and she did become fucking evil. But when you grow up in such a horrible place that's supposed to be your safe spot, your home, and it's the complete opposite, your mind very often will numb and desensitized to a lot of things. And that's how evil is born in so many cases. So Lori became very violent, dark, quiet, strange, very depressing. She often talked about wanting to kill someone and what it would feel like. She talked about sacrificing animals, killing people, a bunch of weird shit. She would even cut herself and suck her own blood. And she even attempted to do that to others in her friend group. So she would just do like weird things like that. So she just became too much for them and they didn't really want to hang out with her anymore. So she gravitated towards Melinda because Melinda didn't, she was into that stuff too. Melinda wanted to kill Shanda and Lori wanted to just kill someone in general. So it was the perfect match with those two. So now really quickly, Hope and Toni, there's really not a lot to say about them at all. Hope was pretty regular. She had a normal life. She had friends. Nothing stands out about her upbringing, which makes it even crazier that she participated in this. Same with Toni. Toni was very shy. The only thing about Toni was that she had been sexually assaulted by a boy, so that caused her to kind of be in a depression. She was a loner. She was very to herself. So basically, to paint this group picture, Lori and Melinda are friends, and Hope and Toni are friends with Lori, so Lori is bringing them all together to commit this crime that her and Melinda are planning. So this all started on the night of January 10th, 1992, and this is where we're going to get graphic. So again, if you don't want to hear it, now is your time to go if you haven't gone yet. The girls all met up at Melinda's house. No one knew the real intention of the night at first except Lori. As far as Hope and Toni knew, they just had plans to go to a concert. When they arrived, Hope and Toni went through Melinda's closet to find outfits to wear for the concert. In the midst of this, Melinda pulled out a big kitchen knife out of her purse and said, "This is the knife I'm going to use." Although, at the time, she just told them she was going to scare Shanda with it. She proceeded to fill Hope and Toni in with the plan. The girls looked up to Melissa. They thought she was cool. They thought she was pretty. And they would believe and go along with anything she said. So she basically got them to believe that Shanda was trying to copy Melinda's look and that she was a slut who was stealing Amanda from her. Melinda called Shanda's father's house a few times that night to make sure Shanda was home before the girls all piled into Lori's car to go and pick her up. Shanda obviously would never go with them if they came to the door because she knew Melinda and they were obviously not on good terms. So the plan was to have Hope and Tony go up to the door and tell Shanda they were friends of Amanda's and that Amanda wanted them to pick her up to take her to meet her somewhere. At this point, Shanda hadn't seen Amanda in about 2 months because she had moved to the private school. When they went to the door, Shanda actually answered, but Hope and Tony didn't know what she looked like, so they asked her in front of her dad and stepmom if Shanda was home. Once she informed them that she was Shanda, they asked her if she wanted to go see Amanda. Her father heard a lot of this back and forth, so when he asked Shanda who they were, and she said friends, he immediately knew that she was lying because they didn't even know she was Shanda when she opened the door. At this point, Shanda stepped outside to get some privacy from the conversation away from her dad, so he didn't hear anything else at this point. Hope and Tony told Shanda that Amanda was waiting at a place called the Witch's Castle and wanted them to pick her up to get her and bring her there. The Witch's Castle was just an abandoned wooded area with like old town legends of witchcraft and stuff, like one of those spooky spots you go to as a teen because of all like the stories and stuff. Shanda wanted to go with them, but she knew her dad would not allow it, obviously, and especially because it was clear she didn't know these girls, so, you know, he's not going to let her go with some random girls who just knocked on the door. So she told them to come back later in the evening and she would sneak out to go. And she never snuck out before, so this was her first time sneaking out. That wasn't the type of girl Shanda was. She told them to have Amanda with them when they came back. So they left, and in the meantime, while they waited for Shanda, they went to that concert that they intended on going to that night. At this point, Lori did say to them, "We're going to kill a little girl tonight," informing Hope and Tony that they were actually planning to kill Shanda. So they filled them in on the new plan. The concert was being held at a skate park, and it was just a regular skate park, but they just held, like, I don't know, I guess bands and stuff there on Friday night. So after about 10 minutes, Hope and Tony wanted to leave. So they went out to the car where they met two boys. They hung out with them. They were, like, making out and talking, just, you know, flirting and stuff for a bit before Tony told them they were with two girls and they planned to kill someone tonight. I guess they didn't believe her, but I don't know. You'll see this is one attempt that Tony made to tell somebody, but nothing came from it. Just to preface here, Tony was very against this whole plan. I will tell you a couple times in the story. I'll get more into it, but fuck Tony, in my opinion. Like, she was against it, but she did nothing to stop it. But she did not really want anything to do with the murder. Hope is a little bitch. She claims she didn't want anything to do with it, but you'll see in the story that she did a lot. Lori and Melinda were evil as fuck, so they're crazy. They were the ringleaders here. Lori and Melinda both stayed in the concert for about 2 hours, and there was a video about this case on YouTube where a woman was talking about it, and she said that she was actually there the night of the concert, and she remembers seeing Lori, and that she got really bad vibes from her, and that she was just staring intensely, and she looked creepy. Like, she looked like she was just mindlessly thinking about something. So I'll link that video on the show notes if I can. It is old, so I'll see if they still have it. After a few hours at the concert, they started back off to go to Shanda's house. Melinda continued to explain her plan as they drove, saying she couldn't wait to kill her, and that she was going to tease Shanda with the knife by running it up and down her stomach. She also mentioned how Shanda was cute and she would like to have sex with her. Again, Shanda was 12. Melinda was like 15 or 16. Like, ew. They arrived back at Shanda's house, and the plan was supposed to remain the same, with Hope and Tony going up to the door to get her. However, at this point, Tony knew Melinda's real intentions, and she no longer wanted any part of it. So she refused to go to the door, leaving only Hope and Lori to do it. So they went while Melinda hid on the floor of the back seat. Shanda already didn't know who Hope and Tony were from the first time they came to the door. Now she's seeing Lori, who she also doesn't know, and she's still not seeing Amanda. So she was a bit hesitant for a minute, saying she didn't have the right clothes on, but it didn't take long for them to convince her. Hope actually went inside with her to help her pick an outfit out to wear. Eventually, Shanda and Hope came to the car, and Melinda is still hiding in the back seat, so Shanda can't see her. When Shanda was in the car sitting, she asked the girls what Amanda was wearing and if she looked cute, and just talking like happy, excited to see Amanda. I'm sure that made Melinda fume. So they began to drive off, and Hope kept starting conversation with Shanda about Amanda that she knew would get Melinda mad. So she was like egging it on. She was asking her if she knew Melinda, if you knew that her and Amanda broke up, and all this stuff. That was egging the whole conversation on. And then she wants to say that she wasn't, didn't want to do it. Yeah, right. Eventually, Melinda popped up from the backseat and pulled Shanda's hair and put the knife to her throat, saying, "Surprise! I guess you weren't expecting to see me." Shanda immediately started crying, begging for her not to hurt her. As they drove to the witch's castle, Melinda kept the knife at her throat and kept asking Shanda questions about Amanda, telling her she wasn't going to hurt her, she just wanted to tell her about Amanda. She kept asking her things like if Amanda and her were together, if they went to certain places together, if they had sex. And each answer, Melinda got more and more heated, and Shanda got more scared, continuously begging Melinda not to hurt her, and telling her she won't talk to Amanda anymore. Melinda told Shanda that Amanda knew she was going to kill her that night, and Amanda wants her dead too. They finally reached the witch's castle, and Lori and Melinda proceeded to tie Shanda up by her wrists and ankles. Melinda tormented her and mocked her and was making fun of her and threatening her and telling her how she was going to cut her hair off and all stuff like that. This whole time, Toni was not interested in doing anything. She did not like the plan at all, so she just sat back. She didn't do anything, but she just sat back. Hope claims she didn't want to do anything either, like I said, but Hope did get involved at this point. She was holding a knife and harassing Shanda. She took Shanda's rings and her Mickey Mouse watch that she had on, and the watch played a little song, so she kept playing the song over and over again, dancing to it. Her little fucking Mickey Mouse watch, because she's a little child. Lori went back to the car to get a black shirt and lit it on fire, and as it was burning, Lori looked at Shanda and said, "That's what you're going to look like, Shanda." At this point, cars were passing by, and there was smoke coming from the burning shirt, and they didn't want to risk getting caught, so they ended up leaving. On the way, they realized they needed a gas, so Shanda directed them to a gas station near her house, probably in hopes that she would be able to signal for someone or see someone that she knows. But when they pulled in, Lori covered her with a blanket, and Melinda stayed in the car while Hope and Toni went inside to pay for gas. On the way to the store, they ran into some guys and started talking, and Toni joked with them about taking her home, asking if they were going in the direction of her house. And this pisses me off because she's making it seem like she didn't want to be part of the whole thing, which she didn't. Honestly, I do believe that, but she could have easily said something and told the guys or told the attendant at the store. Stayed at the station. Like, I understand she was young and scared, and I know that when they were alone at Witch's Castle, and, you know, there was no one around, she was probably scared at that point. But at this point, you're in public. You are around so many people that you could run away and escape from. They're probably not going to chase you down in front of all these people and kill you. You could have done something and told somebody. She had so many fucking chances and she didn't do anything. And it pisses me off. Like, at some point, you need to take some accountability. You had chances to safely tell somebody and you didn't. Anyway, they even stopped at another gas station to get directions, and Toni called a friend of hers. Another time she could have attempted to do something, but she didn't. After this, they were on their way to the next location, which was a woody area that Hope directed them to. And it wasn't really traveled. It was near Lori's house. It was about an hour away, so they thought this was the perfect spot to take her to. The whole time, Lori was playing weird punk music, and all the girls were kind of getting creeped out. She started acting weird, like screaming, crying, laughing a devilish laugh, like weird shit. Once they got to the new location, Toni got out of the car and gave Shanda a hug and told her she was so sorry, to which Shanda asked her to please tell them not to hurt her. At that point, Toni did try to tell Melinda to not hurt her and to take her home, which obviously Melinda wasn't feeling. She just told her to shut up, and I guess this scared Toni, so she dropped it. Melinda and Lori then forced Shanda to take off her clothes so they could keep them as souvenirs, while Hope and Toni stayed in the car because they didn't want to be part of it. Once Shanda took off her clothes, Melinda put them in the car, and Hope decided to take the polka dot bra that Shanda was wearing and put it on. That really seems like you don't want to be part of it, right? Like, if I can give Toni the slightest bit of credit, she never did anything to physically hurt Shanda herself. She didn't get involved in any part of the murder. Hope, on the other hand, did. So, fuck her, fuck them all, but fuck Hope for trying to pretend like she didn't want to do anything. Toni turned up the music in the car because she didn't want to hear the screams and cries coming from Shanda. Melinda began beating Shanda up with the persuasion of Lori, who was holding her arms back, kind of egging Melinda on. The whole time, Shanda is begging her to stop, telling her she has asthma, that she'll stay away from Amanda again, but Melinda still did not care. After this is when it really starts to escalate. Melinda now tried to cut Shanda's throat with a knife, but she couldn't because the knife was too dull. She even went as far as to try to use her foot to push the knife into Shanda's neck, but still it didn't work. Hope then came out of the car and held Shanda down while Lori and Melinda took turns stabbing her in the chest. Lori then tried to strangle Shanda while both girls sat on her body, but realized she couldn't do it alone, so then Melinda put a rope around her neck and they both pulled it until Shanda was unconscious. Thinking she was dead, they dragged her into the trunk and went back into the car. The girls headed back to Lori's house, where they just kind of hung out and washed themselves up. Again, they still think that Shanda's in the trunk dead. Tony and Hope were laying on the bed while Lori and Melinda talked when they heard Lori's dog start to bark. Then they listened closely and they could hear Shanda screaming from the trunk of the car. They had not actually killed her. It takes several minutes of hard pressure on the throat to strangle someone. So, once they pass out, they're not usually dead. You have to still continue to strangle them longer for them to actually be dead, which the girls did not know because they are teenagers. Of course they don't know. So, Lori told the girls she would handle it and went outside to the trunk and stabbed Shanda repeatedly with a small paring knife until she stopped making noise. After, the girls hung out in the room a little longer. It was now 2:30 a.m. when Lori suggested they go country cruising. Hope and Tony stayed behind while Melinda and Lori left. And this is another thing that bothers me so much because Tony and Hope literally were left alone at Lori's house. There was a phone there. Lori's parents were home. They could have easily done something again at this point more than ever if they truly cared. But you know what they did? They went to sleep. They did not call the cops. They didn't run to the neighbors. They didn't try to go home, call their parents. They were left alone for nearly 2 hours. Away from the two girls they claimed that they were so scared of. They weren't there anymore. So you were alone for 2 hours. And you did nothing but go to sleep. Are you fucking kidding me? This is why I say fuck Tony, fuck Hope as well. Because there was no excuse at this point. And I'm sorry for cursing a lot in this episode. This case makes me so sick, and that's just my vocabulary. I'm sorry. When Lori and Melinda left, they had the intention of going to a garbage pile to burn Shanda, but they ended up arguing about how they wanted to dispose of Shanda's body. Melinda wanted to just get it over with, burn her, and that was it. Lori, for whatever reason, wanted to drive around with her and have her slowly die. They began to drive, and they heard more screams and kicks coming from the trunk because Shanda was still not dead. Shanda was a strong little girl. Each time Shanda screamed, Lori went to the trunk and started beating Shanda up. Melinda says it was loud, and she started revving the engine to drown out the noise. And then, one of the times, Lori took a tire iron and hit Shanda over the head with it. Lori came back elated, telling Melinda how cool it was when she hit her over the head with the tire tool because she could feel her head caving in. And then proceeded to put the tool in Melinda's face so that she could smell the blood and guts and stuff on the tire tool. Lori pulled over again after a while just to see what was going on with Shanda. When they opened the trunk, Shanda sat straight up and she was covered in blood, out of it, from head to toe, just covered. They said she was so fully, covered in blood that you couldn't even see the color of her hair anymore because everything was just red. Her eyes rolled to the back of her head and she was like a zombie, and all she said was, "Mommy." They just closed the trunk. Heartless, just closed the trunk. They even opened it again at one point, and Shanda was able to say Melinda. And again, just closed the trunk. They didn't care. Even after that, when she couldn't scream anymore because she was dying, they still heard her banging on the trunk. She did not give up. At some point, they even sexually assaulted her with the tire iron. These are teenage girls capable of doing all this. It's so baffling and crazy to me. I can't even imagine. They still didn't dispose of her body at this point, and at this time they arrived back at Lori's house. They excitedly told Hope and Tony about everything that happened. How every time she screamed, they opened the trunk and hit her, and Melinda bragged they must have hit her over 60 times. At this point, they all get back in the car because now they're really ready to dispose of Shanda's body for good. They opened the trunk to show Hope and Tony the damage they had done to Shanda, and Hope took a bottle of Windex and sprayed it into Shanda's wound, saying, "You're not so hot looking now, are you?" That makes me so sick. They're so cruel. Hope didn't even know Shanda. And she's doing this unprovoked. No one told her to spray Windex in her wounds. She just did it. You don't even know the girl. Even if you did know the girl, this is the hate these girls have in their heart for a child is insane to me. It's just sickening, honestly. So they finally decided they're going to burn Shanda. So they needed to stop at the gas station in order to get some gas. So Lori drove there, and Tony bought a 2-liter bottle of Pepsi that she just casually drank before Lori took it and filled it with gasoline. They ended up driving to a cornfield in the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere to complete the act. Tony stayed in the car while they went to get Shanda out of the trunk. Melinda was grossed out by all the blood, so Hope and Lori wrapped Shanda in a blanket and put her on the ground. As they did that, Shanda, who was still not dead yet, was gripping the blanket as tight as she could. Like, her little hands were just holding onto the blanket because it was the only thing that made her feel safe, probably, and comforted. And it's just, oh my God, I have to, literally fight back tears while reading this story. Lori commanded Hope to pour the gasoline on Shanda, and then Melinda and Lori lit her on fire, and she began to burn. They all got in the car and began to drive away when Melinda made them go back because she wanted to make sure Shanda was absolutely dead. When they returned, Melinda poured what was left of the gasoline on top of her and returned to the car, making fun of Shanda by telling the girls her tongue was going in and out of her mouth as she was burning. She said it was so funny, and she said, "I'm glad she's dead. I'm glad she's out of me and Amanda's lives." Afterwards, Hope suggested that they go to McDonald's to get some breakfast. And to make it even worse, when they were eating their sausage sandwiches, they were laughing and saying, "Doesn't this look like Shanda?" Truly heartless girls. And get this, if you couldn't say fuck you more to Tony, or if you were giving her any of the benefit of the doubt up until this point, I don't know how you could, but please don't. While they were at McDonald's, she called her friend and ended up telling him what happened. That she was with some girls and they just killed a girl named Shanda. So this bitch could sit here after the fact and not be too scared to call someone now and tell them they killed a girl, but was too scared and couldn't pick up a phone earlier to call someone to help. After McDonald's, they dropped Hope and Tony off, and Lori and Melinda went back to Lori's house to clean out the car. While they were cleaning out the car, Lori found what she described as a piece of Shanda's head in the car, and she started playing with it. They then went to Melinda's house, where she called her best friend Crystal. They told Crystal to come over. They also called Amanda, and Amanda asked them to pick her up from the mall. But Crystal came over first, and Melinda and Lori immediately started telling her the story. They were kind of going back and forth, explaining it, arguing about what happened, remembering something, and having to go back. When you tell a story that you're so excited to tell, and you're talking a mile a minute, and you're trying to remember everything, but you're forgetting stuff, so you got to go back and put details in you forgot. That's how they were telling the story. They were fucking excited about it. Crystal is sitting there in disbelief. She really doesn't believe what they're saying. But after this, they went to go pick up Amanda from the mall. Lori made Crystal drive because she was so shaken up. Bitch, fuck you. Shaken up. Look at everything you just did, and now you're shaken up. Give me a break. Melinda was also crying. Another victim was crying the whole 10-minute drive because she was shaken up too. Bitch, fuck you too. For real. So now they picked up Amanda, and they're back at Melinda's house. They explained the whole story again, but Amanda doesn't believe them. And again, Crystal still doesn't really believe them because the story sounds nuts. They didn't think they're thinking there's no way you really did this. But since they didn't believe them, they decided to show them the trunk. So they had cleaned it out earlier, but there was still blood and stuff all over it that they didn't clean out. And there was even bloody handprints. And also Shanda's blood-soaked socks were still in the trunk. So once Amanda and Crystal saw this, they believed them. Melinda, I guess, could see the shock on their faces, and she tried to backtrack and be I just wanted to beat her up, but got carried away. At this point, after seeing the car and realizing that they really did this, Amanda got super uncomfortable and wanted to leave. Melinda and Lori told them not to tell anybody, and the girls agreed. Melinda throughout the day would have bursts of crying and kept asking if God would forgive her, and Lori would laugh at her and tell her she didn't believe in God and she didn't feel bad for killing Shanda anymore. Not that it seems like she ever fucking did. Now, while this is all happening, two brothers were hunting in the area where Shanda's body was left, and they found her. They called the police, and she was so beaten up and burned and bloodied they couldn't identify her at all. She was only wearing a blue pair of underwear that were pushed to the side, and she was posed in a sexually suggestive way. Now, at this point, her father also noticed that she was gone and had filed a missing persons report. He woke up in the morning and realized that she wasn't in bed. Now, at the same time, Tony and Hope were freaking out and told their parents, mostly Tony. But they told their parents they had witnessed a murder the night before, so they went to the police, and Tony told the police everything. Also, at the same time, another thing was that a boy who had heard the girls talking about the murder at some point of the night, maybe at the concert or somewhere, he just overheard them talking. He went to the police to report it. Like, he went there and he's like, I don't know if this is, like, true, but these girls were talking about a murder, so I just want to let you know. So eventually, all of this stuff was being reported and happening in different areas because they lived in different counties. But eventually, all the police kind of came together and connected this all to the same case, and they realized what was going on. So all of the girls were arrested for the murder of Shanda Sharer. All of them were tried as adults. When they were being questioned, Tony obviously was very remorseful. She told them everything. Hope pretended like she was remorseful, told them everything, but as we could see, she was a very big part of it as well. Lori seemed cold, like she didn't really care, and Melinda was trying to flirt her way out of it with the cops. Like, she was like just totally like didn't care at all, which is crazy to me. Tony was charged with criminal confinement, which she only got because she signed a plea deal because she had come to the police and told them everything. She only got 20 years in jail. Hope got charged with criminal confinement and first-degree murder and got 50 years. Melinda and Lori got charged with criminal confinement and first-degree murder and got 60 years. But don't get excited. None of these stupid little evil bitches ended up serving nearly any of the time that they got. Tony only served 9 years. Hope only served 14 years. Melinda and Lori only served 26 years. All of them are free to this day to walk the streets. And they're all alive. And they are all living. I don't care if they were minors when this crime happened, which I'm assuming is why they got off so easily and were able to get out of jail after only serving a few years. I don't give a fuck how old they were. If this gruesome crime is not the crime of children, okay? So they shouldn't be treated like children. They should be treated like adults because they wanted to commit adult crimes like this. This is one of the most gruesome crimes, the most heartless crimes I've ever heard. And the fact that they brutally took the life of a little girl who cannot live to grow up and see her parents anymore, will no longer be able to grow up and live a life anymore, and they are out walking free, is disgusting. They should have all rotted in jail for the rest of their lives. They should have rotted under the jail. The justice system failed Shanda so much with that, and I cannot believe that these girls got such light sentences for this crime. I don't give a fuck about Tony. I don't give a fuck about Hope. I definitely don't give a fuck about Lori and Melinda. All of them were responsible, and all of them, in my opinion, should have been in jail forever. There were so many times Tony could have gotten help. There were so many times Hope could have stopped. Lori and Melinda, if they would have got the help they deserved, maybe this wouldn't have happened, but it did. This case makes me physically uncomfortable to even talk about, research about. It's just, Shanda was such a strong little girl. She did not deserve, nobody deserves this, but she did not deserve that pain and suffering that she went through, all because of a high school, middle school even, romance. That is the case of Shanda Sharer, the gruesome murder of Shanda Sharer. And yeah, I don't even have any more words. So thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.